Denny Hamlin and LaJoie have been going after each other on Twitter the last couple of days, and other drivers have chimed in and made this a very interesting conversation. We're going to talk about that and more in today's episode. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Get ready to read a lot of tweets today. Since Sunday afternoon's race at Atlanta Motor Speedway, LaJoie and Denny Hamlin have kind of been going back and forth with each other on Twitter, really non-stop. Other drivers have chimed in along the way, and it's really become now an interesting conversation of, how much does the driver matter versus how much does the equipment matter when it comes to success in the NASCAR Cup Series. We're going to read through and react to most, if not all, of those tweets in just a few moments. But before that, we are going to start with a report from Adam Stern, Sports Business Journal this morning. He tweets that NASCAR is considering a new policy on Confederate flags. He says this comes after the U.S. Marine Corps officially banned public Confederate displays last week. Now, the last several years, NASCAR has made several efforts to kind of limit the number of Confederate flags at NASCAR races. Remember, they encouraged fans to trade in their Confederate flags for American flags. That was a few years ago. They're doing that at some races. So they've made some concerted efforts in recent years, but calls for new policy have obviously strengthened, not just around the world, but even just within NASCAR. Last night, Bubba Wallace was on national TV in an interview calling for the banning of Confederate flags at NASCAR races. Of course, that is significant because right now Bubba Wallace is the one and only black NASCAR driver in the NASCAR Cup Series. I'll keep this relatively quick, but my take on this is quite simple. Speaking as a young NASCAR fan who hangs out and talks to a lot of other young NASCAR fans around the entire country, that flag does make a lot of people uncomfortable. My personal opinion on this is pretty much irrelevant. I mean, I grew up in Texas, which technically is a part of the South, but you mostly see large support around here for the Texas state flag. People in Texas are very proud of their state, very proud of their state flag, more so than I feel like many other states are of their own flags. So my personal experience with the Confederate flag is very limited, to say the least. But focusing on the NASCAR perspective, I always try to approach these types of things firstly from a basic marketing perspective. The Confederate flag does have a very complicated history, but one thing that is for sure is that to many people, the flag represents exclusivity. I have always said that NASCAR desperately needs to try and reach younger audiences. I mean, there are reports from just a couple of years ago that NASCAR had the oldest fan base of any major sport. If NASCAR wants to have any longevity, it is important to make sure younger fans feel invited to attend races. I think a ban on the Confederate flag is certainly an idea. I do worry a little bit about how easily that will be to enforce at the racetrack. NASCAR's already had in place for a while now a ban on Confederate symbols, in official areas and stuff like that. But when it comes to actually enforcing what fans bring to the racetrack or camp outside the racetrack with, I don't know how easy that will be to enforce. But I certainly will not be sad to see them go away. I will say from recent experience going to NASCAR races a lot last year, you definitely don't see as many Confederate flags as you saw maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I think that's proof that the message has started to somewhat come through. Like I said earlier, I do believe it is in NASCAR's best interest to disassociate themselves with that symbol as much as possible. Live NASCAR races are really just a big party, but if some people feel like they may not be invited, that is certainly a problem. Anyway, that is my take there. It'll be interesting to see what next steps NASCAR may or may not take, but we'll keep an eye on that for sure. Now, before we get to talking about LaJoie versus Denny Hamlin, that little bit of drama, we've got some breaking news this afternoon. NASCAR is officially allowing fans at two of its upcoming races, Homestead Miami Speedway on June 14th and Talladega on June 21st. At long last, it's been over 3 months since fans were last allowed at a NASCAR event, and now we only have to wait less than a week, just a few days. Now, when I say that they're allowing fans, it is a very select number of fans, and it's a specific subset of fans. So here's what both tracks are doing. Homestead Miami Speedway will invite up to 1,000 guests of Homestead Air Reserve Base and U.S. Southern Command in Doral for the races Sunday. Invitation only. Talladega is going to allow 5,000 guests in the grandstand/towers for June 21st race and limited motorhome/fifth wheel camping spots outside backstretch. Tickets are first come, first serve to those who bought tickets or reserved camping for original race and live within a designated proximity to the track. That proximity is 150 miles of Talladega Superspeedway. So of course it is very limited, the number of people and who's going to get to go watch these races in person, but NASCAR of course showing their support and respect to the military with the Homestead Miami Speedway deal. Talladega, of course, a staple on the NASCAR schedule, one of the most popular tracks in NASCAR. It's great that some fans will be allowed. So I guess if you had tickets to the May race at Talladega and live in Alabama or near Talladega Superspeedway, good chance you might have the opportunity to still attend this coming race. First come, first serve. It's gonna still look weird because the stands are gonna be extremely sparse, I'm sure. I'm sure there will be plenty of gaps in the bleachers, but it's really great to see some fans allowed back at NASCAR Cup Series events. Of course, it's already been announced that Pocono here in a couple weeks will not have any fans. Indianapolis will not have any fans at their events either. Kansas has said no fans. Texas, it's still up in the air. There's a decent chance Texas Motor Speedway in mid-July will have some fans allowed to attend that race, but that has not been confirmed or reported on just yet. But a welcome sight to see. It's good to see that NASCAR is starting to return to normalcy. So far, I think they've handled kind of their return very well. Drivers all wearing masks, social distancing has been well executed to this point, and I think this is what happens when you do things right. You get to keep growing. Certainly exciting to know that some fans will be allowed back in the stands here very soon. Hopefully that opens the door to more opportunities in the not so distant future. Let's talk about the beef, the Twitter beef, between Corey LaJoie and Denny Hamlin, because this is quite interesting. There are a lot of enlightening details, interesting ideas, differences of opinion to unpack here, and we're gonna go through this thing. There's gonna be a lot of tweet reading, so get ready. If you really wanna start at the beginning of the Denny Hamlin, Corey LaJoie Twitter beef, you have to go back a couple of months to the Pro Invitational when Corey LaJoie was kind of poo-pooing iRacing. Denny Hamlin responded saying, "Hey Corey, you've always complained about how slow your real life car is. Now's a chance to get in on an equal playing field." And so eventually Corey LaJoie took him up on that offer, and in his first Pro Invitational race at Talladega, Corey LaJoie actually finished second. Of course, Denny Hamlin then dismissed it because it was just Talladega. Fair enough there. So the two of them have kind of had a little bit of a back and forth going back a couple of months, but things took a slightly different turn this past weekend now that real life racing is back and the two drivers are arguing physical fitness, driver versus equipment, all that typical stuff that NASCAR fans love to talk about. So let's start with the first set of tweets from Sunday night after the race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. A grueling race, remember. Ryan Newman afterwards was seeing, not looking so great, needing attention. Bubba Wallace, of course, was taken to the infield care center. Josh Bilicki was also taken to the infield care center with dehydration issues. So Atlanta's race, being hotter than usual, was grueling for the drivers. So with that in mind, let's look at the first tweet from Corey LaJoie after the race Sunday night. Looking at his fitness stats for the race, Corey LaJoie tweeted, "Brutal, I've got to eat 28 bar belts to make up these calories." Good sponsor plug there. And if you look at the numbers he tweeted there, he burned nearly 3,000 calories during the 3.5, 4-hour race on Sunday. You see his heart rate there? Actually, yeah, this goes over 4 hours of time. Certainly a physically demanding race for Corey LaJoie. But then this is where Denny Hamlin jumped in. He replied with his own physical stats, and he tweeted, "No wonder we could never count on you in the fourth quarter." And Denny Hamlin's numbers, you'll notice he burned a lot less calories, less than 1,000. His heart rate and everything was a lot lower, indicating that Denny Hamlin might have been a little bit more physically prepared for this grueling NASCAR event. Well, Corey LaJoie certainly couldn't stay silent on that. He then tweeted, "Can we trade cars?" And then Hamlin, "We could, but I'm not sure you're gonna get the answers you're hoping for." Corey LaJoie then quote tweeted Hamlin, getting more eyeballs on this whole interaction, saying, "I thought you knew how the age-old equation of, I believe, center of gravity is what CG is, downforce plus horsepower plus money equals victories works, but guess not." Denny Hamlin responded, "Real pressure begins when you have all that and still don't win. It ain't all about having a fast car, buddy." I like that buddy at the end. So far, relatively harmless. The two drivers kind of jabbed back and forth about who's in better shape, I suppose. But then, of course, Corey LaJoie turned the subject towards, the fact that his race team, Go Fast Racing, is a 25th to 30th place car most weeks versus Denny Hamlin for Joe Gibbs Racing, fully funded, full sponsorship. That's a top 5 car most weeks. As you can see, the conversation quickly shifted to car versus driver, which is more valuable. Because, you can take Kyle Busch, one of the best drivers in NASCAR today, and put him in a Rick Ware racing car, and he's not going to run better than maybe 20th or 25th in it at best. In NASCAR, drivers are somewhat limited by the equipment they are racing. That's just the truth, and that's what makes it difficult sometimes to actually gauge who is the best driver. We all assume that, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Jimmy Johnson, guys who've won a lot of races but have also been in really good equipment their whole careers, we assume they're all the best drivers, and they probably are because typically the best drivers get the best equipment. But it makes it hard to judge them against drivers like Matt DiBenedetto or Ross Chastain, who've kind of been gritting their teeth in lousy equipment most of their careers up to this point, but have had some standout performances and have showed off well in their few opportunities in good equipment. It makes it tough to gauge how much better certain drivers are than other drivers, so that's why this debate between Hamlin and Corey LaJoie is very interesting, but as we'll see in a minute, it does not really go anywhere. We last left our heroes with Denny Hamlin tweeting, "Real pressure begins when you have all that and still don't win. It ain't all about having a fast car, buddy." Corey LaJoie replied, "Totally understand that. If I get that chance, rest assured, Dennis, I'll be ready." Denny Hamlin, the name is Denny. Scroll up in the standings to find it. Okay, Denny, that's pretty funny. I do like that one. Corey LaJoie, of course, went to Wikipedia. Okay, James Allen Dennis. Corey, it clearly says James Dennis Allen, but your point is taken. Anyway, so that thread kind of fizzled out, just turned into school children bickering on the playground, but very amusing after a fairly uneventful race Sunday afternoon. Seeing all this Twitter banter back and forth was very fun and very entertaining, a way to end my evening. I mean, look at right here. Denny Hamlin responds, rooting for you, but you're still gonna have to work on the diet and hydration. That heart rate is out of control. LaJoie responds, I've got enough people rooting for me. Save it. Enjoy that flight back. Save it will do. Hopefully the poor me narrative works out for you. Yeah, just squabbling like school children at the end there, but very entertaining. Now later on, Xfinity Series driver Josh Williams threw his hat into the ring and made a comment that got a few other drivers talking as well, kind of reinvigorated this debate. Josh Williams said, just now seeing this Corey LaJoie and Denny Hamlin deal, and man, I am just saying if you swap the 32 and the 11, they are still going to finish in the same spot no matter if Corey or Denny is driving them. It's just how it is. Big teams run top 10, little teams run top 15, 20. I certainly think that's a bit too simple of a way to look at things. Denny Hamlin quickly responded with as much. I believe this completely disrespects guys who go out and win. What you are insinuating is that the car is 100% of the car's performance. Just not the case. I'm not talking about running good. Good equipment can make you do that. It's the driver that makes you win. Like I said earlier, drivers are limited by what their equipment is capable of. But that being said, implying that the car is 100% responsible for the team's overall performance is certainly disrespectful to the best drivers in NASCAR who've made it to the top of the Cup Series. What Williams is saying in that first tweet is obviously an overstatement, is obviously incorrect. I mean, just look at Stewart-Haas Racing in 2020. 4 cars, all Fords, built in the same building by some of the same people sharing notes back and forth. But when those cars take the green flag on Sunday, it's Kevin Harvick, the 51-time Cup Series winner, who is clearly getting more out of that equipment than any of the other drivers on the team. I mean, look at the point standings right now. Kevin Harvick is up near the top of the standings. He already has 2 wins this year. You look at Eric Almirola and Clint Bowyer, who historically have been okay. You know, they're sitting 10th, 12th in the standings. And then you look at a rookie. They have a rookie this year, less experienced. He's 26th in points. Stewart-Haas Racing right there. You have 4 cars that are similar, not necessarily entirely equal, but very similar in capability. And you have 4 completely different results because of the driver. Your most experienced and historically most talented driver, Kevin Harvick, is getting a lot out of the cars. Your least experienced driver, rookie Cole Custer, is not getting anything out of those cars. If what Josh Williams asserts there is actually correct, in theory, Cole Custer, Kevin Harvick, Eric Almirola, Clint Bowyer should all be right around each other in the standings because in theory, they're all running basically the same equipment. And according to Josh Williams, the car is 100% responsible for the performance. So that's all I'm saying. That was kind of a silly statement, so I actually do agree with Denny Hamlin's point after here. But after Hamlin debunked Josh Williams' comment, Brad Keselowski entered the fray. Take any position on the team and divide it by the total income on a team. The answer you get is the importance of any given part or person measured in percentage. So Brad Keselowski here is trying to mathematically determine how valuable each person is to a race team. This is an interesting rabbit hole to jump down here. For example, if a team has a total income of $1 million and pays the driver $100,000, they value him as 10% of the team's performance. I think once again, that's looking at this a little bit too simply, but I do like Keselowski kind of throwing math into the occasion because, you know, numbers often don't lie. Corey LaJoie replied to this, not sure I agree. Teams have fixed race expenses and fluctuating sponsor incomes per race. That equation doesn't apply in most cases 20th on back. There are also guys getting the job done that could be considered value pricing. I think that's a good point. You know, NASCAR contracts are in such a way that we don't know what any of the drivers are making from their contracts, from bonuses, from payouts, all that type of stuff. We have no idea exactly what each driver is making on a week-to-week or year-to-year basis, but we do know through interviews and hints here and there that there are some drivers that are likely getting paid a lot less than other drivers. Remember, it was widely talked about back around 2016, 2017 that Martin Truex Jr. was not getting paid the same as, you know, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, the top guys in the sport. He wasn't getting paid quite as much as they were driving for Furniture Row Racing. I'm sorry, gosh, it's been that long. But he was getting the results. I mean, he won a championship in 2017 despite reportedly not getting paid as much as many of the other superstars in the NASCAR Cup Series. So LaJoie has a point there as well, I believe. Now, Brad Keselowski dropped some other interesting tidbits responding to fans in the comments of these threads as well. This one I thought was interesting. He said, if they don't pay the driver at all, they value him at 0%. My guess is that most drivers are around 35% of total team revenue, but that's just a guess. And I do think that's interesting because I have heard it said in the past by veteran drivers, by other people, that they'd argue in modern NASCAR, in 2020 NASCAR, the team's performance is roughly 70% car and about 30% driver, give or take. You know, it could be 60-40, it could be something like that, but roughly in that range somewhere. The driver does matter, but equipment matters heavily. So hearing Keselowski say that maybe drivers make roughly 35% team, interesting, because maybe he has a point now with all his mathematics and trying to numerically, you know, place a value on every person's involvement in the team. I think it's really interesting. A fan asked, how much do you think teams spend on the car each year? And Keselowski responded, I'd say close to 40% is spent on the car via parts or people working on the car, not counting the overall pit crew. So I guess if we actually look back at my chart a second ago, if 30 to 35% is the driver and like 40% or so is the car, and then that's implying another, quick math, 25% is like the pit crew and crew and stuff like that, that could be it. That honestly might be the pie, the puzzle we're trying to fit together right here. Driver and car matter similarly, but I think most people would agree car in 2020 is a little bit more important than driver. See my argument earlier. If you put Kyle Busch in a Rick Ware car, he's not winning the championship. So I'm flipping through tweets. That's basically the end of the thread. That's basically the end of the discussion, but I thought that was very interesting. The most entertaining part of Sunday and Monday, because the race was, Whose side are you on in that little spat? Are you on team Corey LaJoie? Are you on team Denny Hamlin? I mean, they're keeping things entertaining. They're making conversation happen. I thought Brad Keselowski lobbying in some of those numbers, some of that data was interesting to me personally. Someone who's still learning a lot about the intricacies of how the sport works on a week-to-week, a year-to-year basis. I thought that was extremely interesting, but let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you are new. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. That's all I've got for today's episode. Of course, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. You guys are the reason this show is able to continue uploading daily almost these days, so I greatly appreciate your support. If you also want to support the show, check out that top link down in the description. I greatly appreciate it, y'all. I'll have another video up tomorrow, late probably tomorrow evening after the Martinsville night race. There's a Martinsville night race in just a few hours, in like less than 24 hours. Love me some Martinsville, a midweek night race at Martinsville. Gonna hit me some kind of way. So I'm excited for that. I'll have my race review up shortly after the checkered flag falls. I hope you guys are taking it easy. I will see you again very, very soon.